Hello, and welcome to another episode of Biohack Chat. I am your host, as always, Justin. Welcome to the show. It's been a little while since we've done one of these, and I'm pretty excited. As we usually do, I've got my good friend Gabriel Licina here, who I'll introduce in just a moment, and we're going to be talking about how to plan science projects. Now, I know in the thumbnail it says biology project, but this advice goes for any science project. I mean, they all require the same things. You still need equipment, you still need materials, you still need a plan. And so we're going to be talking about how to do that, how to research them, all this kind of stuff. And so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce my good friend Gabe. Gabe, you want to say hi?
Hey, how's it going, everyone? I'm Gabriel Licina. I work for a 501c3, a nonprofit called Scihub. And we do open source research and education and teaching people about how to do the sciences.
Yeah,
I'm on top of my game today.
Yep.
Project design is actually one of my favorite things to talk about because it's actually like this very fundamental skill set that takes lots and lots of practice, and requires you to be able to move fluidly from one type of thinking to another, because you're not really necessarily always going to be. It's not like math where you just kind of hammer out the same thing all the time. You have to read. You got to read the room a little bit and figure out what you're doing. You don't want to just buy the same tools for everything, for instance.
Yeah.
So this is
but
something
also,
I love talking about.
Yeah, and also it's important to know which tools do cover the most ground. Like, especially when you're getting started, like knowing which tools are the right ones to buy first can be very important. Okay, so how about we start with actually, you know what? Do you want to ask the should we ask the comments for an example project and then just like work through?
Yeah, let's go into it straight away. Let's get some examples.
Okay.
Anyone got a good example project? Something that they've been interested working on? Who's the target audience? Okay, so the target audience for this task for this talk. This isn't going to really fly over your head. This is more about being able to take your big idea. Okay, growing saffron, tomato potato hybrid, making web shooters. Okay, that's just one person spanning us.
Yeah. Okay, that's
okay.
Congratulations, you've won a timeout. How do I? What the hell? Why can't I? Why can I not?
Because he's typing so much. Stop it.
It won't let me. Oh, that's why I think my browser is a little. There it is.
Got it.
There we go.
Got it.
Okay. Let's see if we've got anything.
Organs on chips. Okay, micro organ. Okay. Oh, ethyl hormone. Yeah, let's go with micro organ. I like micro organ because it's like
okay.
Yeah, like
I mean that's I mean organ on a chip. That could just be the neuron thing.
Well, yeah, but let's go bigger. Tiny liver. We're gonna 3D print a tiny liver.
Okay, that'll be the theme. I mean that kind of covers a little bit of everything. So like.
Yeah, we can really.
Okay.
Cool.
Tiny liver.
I'm making a picture.
You're making a picture. Okay. So let's start with planning, I think. So whenever it comes to doing any really hard project, regardless of what it is, you always have to break it down into steps, and you always need to make a plan. And so the thing that I like using for this is this site called Benchling. And for anyone who's tuned into the earlier streams, you'll know that I use this a lot. And this is just a small selection of all of the different projects that we've done here. You'll notice that some of them, some of the folders are duplicates. Don't worry about that. But so, for example, right, like if I open up, let's go Brainbow, right? I've got all my different plasmids in here, but one of the things Benchling lets you do is it lets you take notes and it lets you write out protocols. So when you click on the little plus button, You can either choose protocol or entry, and both are fantastic for planning out your thing. So this is actually so you'd probably start with an entry, right? Like the first thing is like you kind of got to figure out, okay, what is it exactly that I'm trying to do, and you got to like take some notes. Personally, I tend to go for like a paper notebook for this, just because I like
Paper is king.
I like being able to write things down when I'm brainstorming. I don't like typing things out, if I can avoid it. But once you kind of have a basic idea, then I'll switch over to Benchling. So one. Okay, so organ on a chip. So if you want to do organ on a chip, the first thing you're going to have to do really, is figure out how does that work, right?
Okay, so I am mostly done with my picture, but it's time for the picture.
Oh, okay. What? Let's see.
Okay. All right. So we have our. Oh man, I need to switch to something else so I can see myself in real time. Okay, so we have our 3D print liver. All right. We have our very, very big idea. Now, 3D printing a liver is not easy. You need to have a functional bioprinter. Okay, so every big project is actually made out of a bunch of small projects. Okay, in university, I worked on trying to create a hydrogel vascular system that could be seeded with stem cells. Totally the same type of thing as making a 3D printable liver. The problem here is that you can't you need a freakishly large amount of money to go out and buy an industry grade bioprinter. There's not a lot on the market. This is not something that you can get for any reasonable sum of money. Okay.
Yeah,
and
chill for a second. I think the stream might be frozen. Is it just really laggy?
Are we froze? It's just super laggy.
It's just super laggy.
Yes. And if it's really, really laggy, you can always just come back. Justin posts the video later if you can't handle it. But we're also frozen. I'm frozen. Are you frozen? Are we all frozen?
That's what I'm saying. I think the stream itself is actually frozen.
Yep.
It's very jumpy. Just give it a sec.
We're buffering. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is. It could be my internet. It could be your internet. I don't know. Could be all. It could just be
refreshing my shit. The general internet, all of the internet.
Just all of the internet. It says audio is okay. Sound is dying. Sound is fine. Okay, what? Shit.
Sound is fine.
Fuck. Off to a great start.
Can we turn down our video quality?
No.
1 frame every minute.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not that bad on my end.
Yeah, I don't know why.
0.3 frames per second.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is. It says video is frozen, audio is fine.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna just talk this through.
Okay.
The show must go on, even if you can't see our faces.
Yeah, and I mean, if this is anything like the every other stream we've done, it'll clear up in a minute.
Okay.
It's probably just my internet is being garbage as usual because it runs off of a fucking phone line.
Yeah, isn't everybody in quarantine anyway? Can you restart the stream, Justin?
Technically, but that would not be ideal.
Well, now I'm actually getting a buffering circle, so that's even bonus.
It's just going to take a second. It always does this.
Okay. Well, all right. So you have this really big idea, 3D print a liver. Now, every part of 3D printing, that's making a product. That's the end. Every piece of that is built out of something. Okay, so you need to understand the material science aspect. What is your scaffold? Okay, so this goes back to when we were talking about ghost hearts and decellularization and stuff like that. So you need to start getting a grasp of that. That's just one project. Now, if you want to do something about that, then you have to go even further back and learn about how all those different aspects work. Because when you're going to be reseeding that thing with your cells, like we did with the grape, for instance, I got skinnier. Like we did with the grape, then you need to make sure that you have that scaffold pre-existing, and understand how that works. So then that breaks down into even smaller and smaller boxes. So you can visualize this as like a cascading series of smaller and smaller boxes branching off from each box. And this is why when you read an article online and they're like, scientists have figured out how to insert some sort of really intensely clickbaity bullshit, and then you go and you actually hunt down the paper, and it's like, we now understand what this enzyme does sometimes. Being able to take all of those little pieces where you understand like basically just how one enzyme works, or how stem cell seeding works, or any of that, like, let's 3D print a liver. This is probably like 100 different tiny tasks that all come together. And so when you're thinking about what you need for your project, you have to think about this in a very stepwise, okay, what is my number one baby step? Not, okay, start with the big idea and work backwards. Because if you work backwards, there's always going to be things missing, because if you already knew all of it, then you could do it. And since you don't know all of it, you have to find all of those little pieces individually. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think that summed that up really nicely. So
Yeah.
just so you know, the video is still a little bit laggy, but apparently the audio is mostly fine.
Hey.
So it's basically a podcast. Oh, there we go. I think it's actually back now. That's fun. Okay, cool. So yeah, no, I think those are
Super
all
laggy, but we're,
Yeah, it's sorting its shit out. So yeah, I think that's a really good point, where you can't work backwards. Like, you can't work from the end product and then try and fill in the pieces. You really do need to start from the basics and work your way up, because otherwise you're just going to get overwhelmed and you're going to not know the things that aren't going to work until you hit them, and then it's no fun. We're talking about so for liver on a chip, right? To me, the things that this says are, okay, well, I need to know, how do you grow liver cells, because you're going to need to know that. You're going to need to know, how do I keep them, like, how do I make an organ on a chip? What goes into that? And then also, how do I print an organ on a chip? Right? Those to me seem like the three big ones, right? So the bioprinting, the chip itself, and then the culture.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. So we have three entirely separate categories, and we're going to have a different tool set for each one of those.
Yeah. So when it comes, so let's start with bioprinting, for example, right? Bioprinting at the end of the day is really just usually extruding gels maybe into another bucket of like a fixative or something. So you'd want to look at, so like you go into Google and you go bioprinting, right? And you basically just see what comes up first, and what you're going to see is a lot of like syringes printing goo.
And they're all made by laboratory, like university laboratory researchers usually.
Yeah.
Every time you read one of these papers, they're like, and then we built this thing from scratch, because it doesn't exist.
Yeah. Or you can take, but so with this, the thing that I would do is I would maybe buy a commercial 3D printer and then modify it to do this thing. So like, instead of extruding filament, you just have it extrude like a gel that sets or something.
So I noticed that somebody was talking about the Mars printer, which I also have one of those. And it's the, I don't know, it's like called egg glue or something.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It does UV curable resin as opposed to
It's an SLA printer, yeah.
Yeah, and so this is what we did. We used that for when we were doing the vascular system, because you really do need something that it has a tendency to be softer and kind of porous. So hydrogels are really, really great, and most of your hydrogels are UV curable. especially if you're going for a hydrogel that's biocompatible. So that's the type of printer, but then you still have to modify it.
Right.
Yeah.
I've looked for SLA resins that are like bio-friendly, and like they're expensive if they exist.
Yep. You have to. The problem is actually the cross-linkers for SLA resins.
Yeah.
SLA resins are fairly inert, and you can make and or buy some that are biocompatible, but the cross-linkers themselves, speed of cross-linking and energy input of cross-linking, which are very, very important for SLA printers, like you can't have a very powerful laser just kind of shooting your gel all the time. And so you need a very, very effective crosslinker. And for some reason, it seems that the more effective your crosslinker, the more completely, absolutely don't put this thing in your mouth it is.
Yeah.
And so that's been a big problem that we had to work on when we were doing this.
And I mean that's one of the things I've been wondering about. I'm like, how do you actually make something that's UV reactive and not horrifyingly toxic? But I mean that's kind of neither here nor there. But like let's say you want to go the SLA route. That means okay, now I need to find biocompatible resins, right? So I would
like this stuff right here.
There you go. Did you print teeth? Is that a mouth guard?
No, it's actually just an example of some biocompatible resin that I found at a company. It's like $300 a liter. It's really fucking expensive.
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking at that stuff.
Yeah, they sent me a free sample though.
Oh.
In theory, you could. And it's autoclavable too, because that's the other thing. You need something that can be autoclaved.
Right. Okay. So basically, what I'm hearing is you'd start with dental resin, right? That's kind of what you'd go with, just because I mean you can't really use, I mean like this is kind of why people do the syringe type extrusion-y stuff, just because you can use materials that aren't plastic, right? Like you could use, actual hydrogels or like extracellular matrix proteins or all these kinds of different things. Whereas with resin, it's plastic. It's plastic. You're going to have to modify it afterwards so that the cells are happy. But at the end of the day, it's plastic.
And on some level, plastics are a matrice, so you can still get some good stuff. You just need a soft plastic. This shit's really hard.
That's the thing. All the biocompatible resins that I see are dental resin, and so they're hard as hell.
Yep.
So like all the soft resins are not biocompatible. Okay.
It's the autoclavability.
Yeah.
So then you start looking at stuff like using ethylene oxide as your sterilizer. I mean, just thinking about the resin, like we could talk for an hour about finding the appropriate resin.
Right. And I mean, this is kind of this is exactly the planning process, right? Like we've broken, like you break the thing down into 3 pieces, and immediately we've already zeroed in on, okay, well, if you're going to be doing this thing, the printing is probably one of the most important pieces. Because otherwise, this is just not going to work. It's not an organ on a chip if you've just got something sounds like it broke.
Oh, I'm snapping the teeth. I'm just fidgeting.
Okay.
I'm snapping the teeth off of the build plate.
Yeah. Oh, also, just really quickly, because these went by and I didn't get a chance to say thank you. We had a couple of donations, and so I just want to say thank you to the people who chipped in. It's really greatly appreciated. Thank you, Nico. Thank you, Mr. Roberts or MD Roberts. And there was another one I saw go by, and I didn't.
Hey, look! It's a paper about hydrogen and 3D printing.
McPherson. Of course, it fucking is. That surprises me 0%. Okay, so now we've kind of narrowed down to, okay, well, so you got to find the right resin or the right printer, or you're gonna have to modify a printer. That's one thing. So now you know that's one step. The next step is going to be culturing the liver cells, right? So for that, you're going to probably want to look up some literature on culturing liver cells. So liver cells are called hepatocytes. So, I mean, honestly, the first thing that I do is I just Google it. Literally, I just go culture conditions hepatocytes. Right? Like you just like literally you're basically ask the internet the thing that you want. And so the first thing that comes up is long-term culture and co-culture of primary rat and human hepatocytes, which sounds exactly like the thing that you want. And in this case, it looks like it's an open paper, which is lovely. So it becomes quite straightforward. So the nice thing is this comes with a protocol, right? Which goes something along the lines of, thaw fetal bovine serum. These are, and like it gives you a list of the stuff that you need too.
Right, and this gets you into the I am building a giant shopping list.
Yep.
To do this type of stuff.
Exactly. So yeah, they've got the short version of the methods here. So this is materials. Oh, okay.
Hey, that's nice.
That's lovely. It's just a whole list of materials. You're like, okay, you need fetal bovine serum, L-glutamine, epidermal growth factor, penicillin streptomycin, hydrocortisone sodium succinate, insulin, hepatocyte culture media, which it is basically most of the things I just listed off, and DMEM, rat tail collagen, like all these different things. So you're like, okay, I need to, so now you have a shopping list, right? You're like, okay, I need to go buy all of these things. So the first thing you're going to want to do, of course, is you're going to want to go into Benchling and, make a new entry, and just start writing all this out. Like write out everything that this paper says that you need. And then personally, I would typically pull up like 3 more papers and just compare and see if there's something different and try and understand why they're asking for all these different things. Like certain things you can just be like,
it's like looking for recipes on the internet.
Yeah.
Like you find a good curry recipe and then you're like, cool, this is a curry recipe. And then you find another curry recipe and for some reason as this ingredient, you're like, why does it have this? And so you look at like 10 recipes and you try to find like the platonic recipe and you're like, this is probably the most likely thing that's going to function.
Yeah.
The reason for that this exists in cooking blogs is because everybody needs to be special.
Yeah.
The reason that this exists in academia and science papers is also because everybody needs to be special, but also because stuff is very expensive, and so people use what they already have. And there's also just kind of like a weird superstitious, you do it the way that you were taught kind of way. You're like, well, why do I use this acid for buffering? Well, because the guy who taught me how to do it, this is how he does it, and it works.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if it works, then I'm going to do it too.
And then you just kind of get locked in.
Yeah, and then you just kind of get locked in. You're like, oh, wait, you mean you don't do this? No, of course not. This way works. Well, our way works too. So you kind of have to like examine all of these methods and see where the overlaps are, because those are the most functional places.
Right. But then there's also certain things like, especially when you're doing, let's go with mammalian culture. Like there's a few things where it's like adding salt and pepper to food. Like it's just a given. You just have to do it.
Yeah.
So like using fetal bovine serum, that's just a given. Using DMEM, that's basically just a given. Like,
Yeah, there's ways to get around it, but the problem is if something breaks, you don't know why it broke. You
Right.
don't know if it's because you were using like L15 media that allows you to not use a carbon dioxide incubator, or
or whatever the case may be. Like
you decided to use Gatorade instead of DMEM, and you can do it. Pocari Sweat. That's the gold standard there for
it doesn't
beverages.
actually. I've looked it up. That doesn't actually work. It's
the Pocari Sweat.
It does not actually work. No.
There's that Japanese paper on it.
Yeah, I read the Japanese paper. It says Pocari Sweat doesn't actually work. It was Green Dakara was the only one that you could do an 80% substitution with DMEM.
Yeah. See.
And it was never pure Green Dakara. When they just ended up making their own. Anyway, this is getting off topic. The point is, once you find this basic recipe, you just work through it once. And then once you've got it working, then you can go back and you're like, maybe I don't need this glutamine. What does that do? Do I actually need it? What if I add more? What if I add less? And then you're into like the refining stuff. But at that point, your project's well underway. So first things first is you find a recipe like this and you follow the recipe, right? It's not It's like Ratatouille. Like, you know, it was good. It was
Yeah, you were definitely not trying to make it, you're not going to be breaking any new ground because how do you know if your stuff works if you don't have a standard? This
right,
is all about
exactly.
positive and negative controls.
Yeah, it's like in Ratatouille. Like it was Gusteau's job to be exciting. It's your job to follow the recipe. Um, it's exactly what it is. When you're first doing something, just follow the recipe. Don't try and get too complicated. Um,
Don't freestyle.
yeah, don't freestyle. Okay, so now we've got our basic culture conditions for our liver cells, and we know how we're going to, or we have an idea of how we're going to make the thing we're going to grow the liver cells on, right? So we were going to do, bioprinting for that. Liver, we've got the liver culture. Now the thing we really need is equipment
Now wait a second
and
though.
reagents. Yeah. What?
Yeah, but wait a second. Like, do we want to go with liver cells? Like, don't livers have multiple cell types in them?
Technically, but hepatocytes are the main ones that do all the work.
Right. But like, so can't you just don't you want to maybe what if we want to like induce stem cells? Like, which works better, just seeding with liver cells or inducing stem cells?
I have no idea. I mean, you'd have to like,
Right. I mean, it's a question though. Like,
yeah.
okay, but
I mean,
see,
at that point, then you
there's-
go liver on a chip. Like that's that. Like then you're like, okay, now I have some basics of, I know how to do basic liver culture, and I have some ideas on how I want to do the bioprinting. But let's see how, like it's always base it on what somebody else has already done, so that you have something to work from. So you're like, okay, how do you make a liver on a chip? So
I
then
think it's more like liver in a bottle,
and I mean,
technically.
yeah, but so in this case, I just found a PDF, so we're gonna open the PDF and hope it's not infected. Um, And, okay, let's see what this is. See if it's any kind of helpful. There you go. It's a paper, Engineering a Liver on a Chip to Mimic Liver Function and its Biomedical Applications. Sounds
Oh yeah, and so this is
great.
microfluidics. This is like
Yep.
even more different because we're not actually making a liver. We're making something that acts like a liver.
Yeah.
Like in the same way that if you look at some of these artificial hearts that they've made, like they do not necessarily look like a heart. They've got the same gaskets because they need to connect to the same places. But like I think one of these just works continuously. Like it doesn't even pump.
Yeah.
Isn't there like an artificial heart that just runs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Dude doesn't even have a heartbeat. He just makes a whirring noise.
Yeah, he's got his heart in a backpack. Like,
Yeah, and it just sits there and
that would be so weird. Like, I mean, I guess you get used to
Yeah.
it, but like, I think he also played basketball or some shit too. Like he was like,
I mean, it does the job.
yeah, but like,
Uh,
if somebody knocks your bag off, your fucking heart comes out. Like,
I feel like you probably have some sort of really robust. Okay, we're getting off topic.
anyway, yeah, it's not
Um,
not the okay. But actually, so this paper,
Yeah. Let's go with liver organoid. That's a good suggestion.
I mean,
Um,
we said on a chip, so we're doing on a chip.
Okay,
Don't get
we're
distracted.
doing liver on a chip.
Once you pick a thing, don't get distracted. Like,
No, that is actually very important.
it's a very important thing. Like you can totally go down a rabbit hole, but don't let yourself. Like stick to the thing you're supposed to be working on. So in this case, this paper talks about the different kinds of liver cells, and what they all do, and why they're important. So now it's kind of going from, okay, do I just need to culture hepatocytes, or do I actually need to culture every single one of these different cell types? So, it's one of those things that you just kind of have to, and, I'm not going to read this whole paper right now. There's a lot in here. It's a very, very long paper, but it's also perfect, because it shows you very succinctly the sorts of things that you're going to need to consider. So basically there's different, so they're talking about liver models commonly used in vitro. So you can perfuse a liver. You can do like little cell culture, like 2D cell culture, which is what we're used to in mammalian stuff. You could do 3D bioprinted hepatic models. So that's the gel printers. That's not like 3D print plastic and then put cells into it. That's you print the cells where you want them. There's the 3D spheroids, which is the organoid that somebody was just mentioning, and then there's liver on a chip. So they're all kind of. Oh, thank you, Max. Greatly appreciate it. So they all have their pros and cons and different uses. But I mean, finding a paper like this is kind of like a jackpot, because the amount of information that it'll convey is super, super helpful. But now, just for a second, let's pretend that this paper was behind a paywall. One of the easiest ways to get around that, because I get asked this a lot. They're like, you're not in academia. How do you read all these papers? I'm like, let me introduce you to my friend Alexandra. I don't actually know her. She's awesome, but I've never interacted with her.
You're not that cool.
I'm not that cool. I'm not even fucking close to that cool. Are you kidding me? No. So there was this fantastic woman from Kazakhstan who created this website called Scihub. And the way that it works is you basically put in any... So every paper... I'm going to just pull up a paper on like NCBI or something. Oh, here we go. Nature. Perfect. This will be behind a paywall. See? There we go. Behind a paywall. Okay, how about...
That's the spirit.
There we go. You just got to find a Nature paper.
I feel like this is a really, really lazy form of roulette. It's like, try to find a paper that is inaccessible to the public. Yeah.
Yeah, right? Okay, so what you do, you find this paper, you're like, I would like to read this paper, multi-species liver on a chip. Because, nothing says liver on a chip like, making mouse-human hybrid livers.
We froze again.
Did we?
Mm-hmm. Whatever. Just keep going.
Okay, shit. God damn it.
We're helpless. It's not our fault. All right, let's...
Is it frozen? Is it frozen, or is it just the audio? Or is it just the video?
Can you hear us? I'm seeing the chats come up, so I assume that, we have audio.
Only audio. Okay. We're good.
Everybody's watching this on a computer. Open a browser window. Go to... Which Scihub did you go to?
ST.
Okay, go to sci-hub.st.
Yeah. Okay, so this will probably...
You can follow along yourself.
Yeah, this will unfreeze in a second. So actually, while we're frozen...
We're a podcast.
Yeah, while we're frozen, I'll take a second to answer. There's a question or a comment. It says, my lab studies biochem at University of Missouri. We're planning on experiment with making mycelium grow into eco-friendly materials. Cool.
Okay.
Have fun. That sounds great. And we got another...
There was someone who said that they're working on 3D printers at their university right now.
Okay.
For doing bioprinting.
Cool.
That's awesome. I think there's contact information in the comment section. There's a Discord that a lot of us chat on, both in Justin's Discord and I have a Discord. So I'm sure there are people that would be excited about that.
Yeah.
We are aware that it's lagging. Talk about something else.
Yeah. The stream will catch up in a second. It's probably just my garbage internet. It's, reason 1.5 million I hate this apartment. So, and there's literally nothing I can do about it. Like, I would love to run fiber, but I can't. So, this is what we got. Okay, so just moving on. So let's say you've got you go to you find the paper that you want to read, you get the DOI number, and then you go to Scihub and you just paste the DOI number into the little search bar, and you click enter, and then some magic happens, and then look at this, you just happen to have the paper. How wonderful is that? Although in this case, there's no paper. It's just, it was like a blurb. So it wasn't really behind a paywall, it was just actually short.
No.
Which is...
There you go.
Sometimes you don't know until you know. So, is the way it is. And you can see Alexandra here. So, technically legally I cannot say that you should be using Scihub. It is...
Really? Can you, legally not say that?
It is technically stealing.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so definitely don't go to Scihub.ts. dare put in a paywalled DOI because somebody will
Yeah,
have their panties in a twist.
yeah. Elsevier might
don't
you know
and then don't
not like you.
read the science papers that your tax dollars paid for.
Yeah.
Just don't do any of that.
Yeah, even though
right?
your tax dollars paid for it, but you're not allowed to have it because Elsevier needs to feed gold to its hyenas or whatever the fuck it is that they do. So is the way it is. But okay, so now you know how to get and find research articles so now you've read the research articles. You've taken good notes on benchling, right? Everybody, remember, you always take good notes. The better notes you take, the better you will be, and you will learn the hard way if you don't. There have been many projects I've worked on where I did not take good enough notes, and wow, was it painful. Like there was one point I was working on some nanotech stuff, and I'd accidentally managed to make these like hyper absorbent carbon sponge materials that were ridiculously good at like absorbing dye and other contaminants out of solution. Except I didn't write down the recipe because I was an idiot. And so I was never able to recreate them because I didn't write down what I did. So don't do that. That's very bad. Always take detailed notes of everything you are doing. Always. Oh good, the video's back. Yay. So yeah, this is... so you take good notes, you find papers, you take more good notes, you find more papers. This is kind of the cycle of planning a project and remembering that you're breaking down each little piece. And so what I find really helpful is I'll go in and write protocols, right? So like once you've found was it this one? Yeah. So or when we first found that
copy paste that sucker right in there.
Basically, I mean, I'll just I'll take notes. But so in Benchling, this is the protocol. This is what the protocol page looks like, and so you're like culturing hepatocytes, right? So then you take really good notes of okay, what were all the materials that they listed? Because if you miss one and then it doesn't work, you're going to be very confused why it didn't work. So write very clearly. I need this material, I need this material, I need this cell type from this supplier. And then write out your procedure. Write exactly what it is that you think you're going to be doing. And then repeat this for every expected step of your thing that you're trying to do. Which in this case, you'd have one of these for maybe setting up the bioprinter, right? You'd maybe have a second one for post-processing the prints. You'd have one for culturing the hepatocytes, one for seeding the hepatocytes, one for how do you run the rest of the liver on a chip, right? Like, do you have bottles of reagents and pumps and stuff? How do you manage those? And so you write protocols for every little thing that you can think of.
But you're still forgetting that we have even smaller boxes to get to.
Yes.
So, you have all of these lists. You've got your shopping list. But how do you get your materials?
That's the next thing. So
yeah.
Let's start with the basics, right? If you want just equipment, usually the best place to get that is, unless you have like an account for a specific place, a great place to get this is eBay. Like, the amount of equipment that you can get on eBay is kind of bananas. And you just kind of look what you want, right? Like, if you're like, I want an electroporator or whatever. Or like, let's say I want a I don't know, what's a thing that's here? Culture flasks, right? Culture flasks. Right? You're going to be doing mammalian culture, you need some culture flasks. So you go culture flasks. The nice thing with this is you don't need to buy from Thermo. Like, a culture flask is a culture flask is a culture flask. They're all the same. So you don't need to necessarily buy from one of the big name suppliers if you can find it on sites like eBay. And you'd be surprised the amount of stuff that you can find here. But at some point you are...
And if you're in the United States, you could just buy it on Amazon.
Yes.
You can buy lots of stuff on Amazon.
You'd
be surprised.
Yeah. You can buy actual human bones on Amazon. Because hey, they got to do something with their workers when they disappear.
Yeah.
So Anyway, the point being that Amazon and eBay are fantastic resources to get the basics, right? And you would be surprised and stunned how much stuff you can get, especially if you live in the States. If you live in Europe, you're fucked. But, you know, everywhere else, the amount of stuff that you can get is pretty fantastic. If you're in South America, they have a different thing that isn't eBay. It was, I forget what it's called. It's very yellow.
Starts with an M, I think.
Starts with an M.
Everything was yellow.
It was just all yellow all the time. But, you know, you look for your local version of eBay, basically. It's a great place to start. But past a point, you are going to hit, like, a bit of a wall, because at some point you're going to have to talk to the big boys, basically. So we're talking, like, Thermo Fisher. We're talking ATCC, like, NEB. Like, if you're doing bio stuff, these are the people you're going to have to talk to.
Where are you going to get your hepatocytes, Justin?
the family cat? No, don't do that. Don't experiment on your pets. But, you know, so if you're doing bio projects, the main players you're going to end up interacting with are Thermo Fisher, NEB, and ATCC. However, if you're, like, we kind of picked a really hard thing because it's liver cells, and so liver cells are kind of hard to get. But if you're doing stuff like Carolina Biological, if you're doing, like, microbio stuff, a much easier place to get stuff is Carolina Biological. They have a really great selection of. They also have equipment too. I just realized it's kind of overpriced. But they do carry loads and loads of equipment. You can get preserved specimens, you can get live specimens, you can get chemicals, media, basically anything you can need. It's very weird going on a website and they're like, would you like a bucket of organs? And you're like, no? What? Why? So, right, if you go to, like, life science, this should get you to product categories. I just like looking at their live organisms category or catalog because they've just got so much cool stuff. But, you know,
yeah, especially their algae.
Yeah, their algae is really neat.
Yeah.
But, you know, they've got a little bit of everything. So if you want to work on plants, some animals, or like microbes, they're a great place to start looking because they have a really wide selection of stuff. There's some other places as well, but Carolina is the most broad. There's a Canadian version of Carolina. I believe it's called Merlin. Let me just check. Yeah, Merlin Scientific. So at some point though, like especially like at this point, we're going to assume that you want to play with like big hardcore science equipment. So at some point, it's going to hit a point where you're going to need a company. Because most of these places won't sell you, so like eBay, Amazon, and maybe Carolina will sell you stuff, no questions asked. I mean, especially eBay, like who asks questions on eBay? You can buy all kinds of weird stuff that you probably shouldn't be able to. But at some point, like if you want to buy from ATCC, right? You're going to need a company. It's just the way it is. Like, they will not sell to you if you do not have a company, and this is just part of the doing bio process. You set up a company, be it like a single person company, or you get a couple of friends, or whatever the case may be. You set up a legal company. At that point, you then probably need a commercial space. Some of these just want a company, some of them don't care, whereas others want both a company and a commercial address. So in this case, you're going to want to find a friend who has some sort of commercial address. And, you know, because it doesn't need to be your address. It can, like, if your friend owns a shop of some kind, it's a commercial address. Like, they just want to, like, be able to look it up and go, oh, yeah, that's zoned commercial, and then they'll send you the thing. In theory.
Of course, that technically counts as mail fraud, so you shouldn't do that either.
Yeah.
Definitely don't do that.
Definitely don't do that. But
and don't have friends buy things for you.
Yeah, that's also not allowed, even though it's very effective.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you know, no matter how you cut it, at some point. But I mean, if you really want to do this professionally, if you're making a liver on a chip, like you probably have some significant funding somehow, um, or you're,
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of this equipment, even on eBay, is really, really expensive.
yeah, like thousands and thousands of dollars. Like if there's one thing I need to make excruciatingly clear, bio is pay to play, and it's very, very expensive. There's a reason that I'm not doing Meatberry every single day of the year, because Meatberry was expensive. Or like Neuron Project, everyone's like, "What's the update on the Neuron Project?" I'm like, "It's still expensive." Like, that's your update. It costs money. So
A lot of money.
like lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of money, and so you just need to be cognizant of that. So at the point where you're buying stuff from ATCC, like you have lots of money at this point. So it makes total sense that you could rent a little commercial space, set up a little company, and just order whatever. Then you can just order whatever they want. Like they don't care what your degree is. Like they don't care who works there. They just want to know that you've checked all the right boxes, which is have a commercial address, have a company. That's it. That's all they want. And at that point, you can just set up an account, and they'll send you whatever you want, basically. There's certain things that are restricted, and they'll ask for more information, but like you probably shouldn't be like if you're using this stream as like a baseline for how to do these things, you probably shouldn't be buying anything dangerous, or particularly expensive. If I'm being like perfectly honest, but is the way it is. So there's all these different places you can buy from. Once you have your shopping list, though, it's pretty easy to just kind of shop around and see, okay, where is this cheaper? Where is this functional? All this kind of stuff. You just kind of go from there. So now we've kind of broken this down and we've kind of covered the basic steps. So the thing, though, is this same concept of like break it down into little pieces. Research each piece, find your equipment, make a shopping list. Like all of these things are the same thing that you're going to do for any project, not just science, like or not just biology even. So like bio is the stuff that me and Gabe are very familiar with. So like we have all these sites that we know of, like Carolina and Merlin and ATCC and Thermo Fisher. But if you're doing physicsy stuff, like you're going to be looking for an entirely different set of sellers. Or if you're doing chemistry stuff, you're going to be looking at an entirely different set of sellers. So like for physics, depending on what you're doing, a lot of the stuff can come from eBay. Like there's a surprising amount of stuff that you can get on eBay. Just stuff I don't know why anyone should be able to own this. Right? Like if you want lasers, like you can go like, I want a fiber laser, right? And you can just buy one. They're expensive, but you can just buy one. Actually, that's not that expensive. I mean, it's very expensive, but that's less than I thought that was going to be. Right? So like, you search up the thing that you want and you can find it. And yeah, it might cost you a bunch of money, but it's available. Or if you're like, I need vacuum chamber stainless steel, right? I want a stainless steel vacuum chamber parts. And you just type that in and stuff comes up. In this case, you get these like degassing ones because everybody's obsessed with resin these days. But if you put in like Varian, all of a sudden you're going to be getting more like professional vacuum stuff, right? So you just kind of have to learn the keywords. So a lot of this is actually, so another really important aspect of all of this is networking. Like, and this is something that gets kind of put aside or like forgotten about in a lot of cases, but networking is kind of your answer to how do you do all of these projects. Because having a network of people who can point you in the right directions is infinitely valuable. Like being able to go, hey, like, Joe, I want to do this thing I want to make a fusion reactor, right? You make fusion reactors. Where'd you get your parts? And like, then you have that conversation and they can tell you where you got your stuff. And
this goes for just about everything.
Yep.
Sometimes you'd be like, hey, I'm looking for a protocol on this. I've found 5 different protocols. They're all completely different, but you work on this. What's your go-to? And this is where like doing stuff privately or solo, like this is where so many of us suffer, because when you're in school or you're at a workplace, you have coworkers, and the coworkers are also working, or co-students. Co-students, is that a
Yeah.
term? And they're also working with you. And so when you have a question, you can ask them. You can ask your professor. Maybe your professor is like, "Oh, you should talk to so and so. They're working on a graduate degree, but they used to be working on this when they were an undergrad." And so you can
Yeah.
build the social aspect, the social network development that you get in university or academia, is really missing a lot in the biohacking independent biologist community. And people talk, but they don't share as much as they could.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that you, as an independent scientist, should always try to focus on, is like developing relations and people to work with.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter how good you are at something, you're always going to make mistakes,
Yeah.
you know? And it could be like, hey, you're tired. Maybe you forgot to eat lunch. Maybe you're just having an off day and you put the decimal point in the wrong spot. Having another pair of eyes, examining your work, running a shopping list by someone, being like, hey, I found this valve and I don't really think this valve is good. Hey, friend who deals with valves, can you help me out here?
Also,
that's really important.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, like, I have a short list of
classmates. That's the word. Yes.
What?
Sorry.
Fellow educational slaves? What?
Yes.
But so especially if you're doing the independent science thing, like you're not doing this from a academic standpoint, like you're not in university and trying to do this. One of the really useful things is finding the like groups and forums and stuff. So like let's use fusion reactors just because I have that memorized. So like if you're going to do fusion reactors, for example, like there's a whole forum of people who build fusion reactors, right? It's fuser.net. You go to the forums, and then there's several dozen people who make fusion reactors for fun. And this has been around for frickin' ages. But then you like once you start becoming friendly with some of the people on these boards, then you can have those more like personal conversations of, hey, do you have any of this? Do you know anything about this? That kind of thing. But open forums like Facebook groups or forums like this are really great, because then you can just post a really broad topic, and then whoever happens to know will hop in. But if you already know who knows the answer, you can just send them a message.
I mean, the worst thing that happens is they just don't reply.
Yeah, or they say, no, sorry, I don't actually know that.
And then message somebody else.
Exactly. Like, I have a short list of people who, whenever I get stuck on projects, they're the first people I ask. Right? Like, if it's a computer thing, I got my computer guy. If it's an engineering thing, I got my engineering guy. If it's a bio thing, depending on which kind of bio thing, I've got, like, 3 or 4 different people. So, it's like, building that network is super, super duper important.
Yeah, and so in the giant sheet of, hey, what are my smallest boxes? Some of them are learn how to talk to people and maybe get an LLC.
And maybe remember to eat a sandwich occasionally.
And eat a sandwich. Work on the baby steps.
We just had a little. So we just got a donation, and it just says, "Hi, Justin and Gabriel. Gabe is looking hella fine."
Oh, thank you. Where did this come from?
I don't know. It was just a donation. It was just like...
Okay, somebody donated. I look cute, and that's bringing in the big bucks now.
Yep, that's why we keep you here. Yeah, and I have Gabe for chitas and stuff. Yeah,
It's true.
It's true. So
okay,
yeah.
let's okay, so this is like we've got a general scaffold, general breakdown here. Are there any places where people need a little bit more expansion? Anything that's hazy here?
Yeah, is there anything that we covered that it wasn't nice and clear? Because I think we kind of broke it down into at least the ways that I would have done this. Like, I mean, the thing that we're omitting is the many, 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 many more hours of rinse, lather, and repeat of, do more research, make more lists, check, check with experts, check everything, and then maybe consider ordering some stuff. After you then you got to do a budget. Then we're getting into the kind of not academic, like the like the bureaucratic steps of, you got to also make a budget. You got to know how much this stuff's going to cost before you go into it, because the last thing you want is $10,000 worth of liver culturing stuff that's all just going to go bad, and then you've just pissed away money. So, and then you got to figure out okay, which things do I order in what order, right? You don't order the liver first, you order all the hardware first, and then you order some other and then it's probably good to get a different cell line that's less finicky, so you can get used to working with it if you've never worked with it before. And even breaking down the basics even further to also adjust for your skill set. If you're using stuff you've never used before, make sure that you budget and account for learning how to use the thing properly.
Yeah. The last time somebody asked me to help them set up a lab, I gave them a 3-month window of setting up, making sure that all the equipment worked. And this goes for brand new equipment. This wasn't eBay crap. It's just, it kind of sucks that way sometimes. You got to make sure that everything works. Then you got to make sure that all the cell lines work. You got to make sure that you can actually grow everything. You can't even start jumping into, you're not just going to unbox your 3D printer before it's even set up and been I'm going to be printing scaffolds by the end of the day. Maybe if that's your background, but probably not.
And even if it is your background, things go wrong constantly.
Constantly.
Also, I think somebody mentioned this. What happens if you can't recreate a paper? Yeah, go for it.
Pause for a second, please. I just wanted to say that the Discord, somebody said the Discord link isn't working. So I am posting one right now in the chat for people who want to go to the Gabriel Discord, the Sci-House Discord, just because evidently that link doesn't work anymore. So here's a new one. Okay, you were saying.
So it's just, what happens if a paper fails to be recreated? And in that case, the answer is, well, you've got to figure out, did I do something wrong, or is the paper incorrect? And that kind of comes down to how sure of your process are you, and have you had anyone else check? This is when that second pair of eyes really comes in handy, because you're am I just an idiot, or is this paper just incorrect?
Is it me? Is it the paper? Is it the equipment that I'm using?
Right.
Did everything get calibrated properly? Did I set the centrifuge at the wrong thing and just turn my cells into Jell-O? Who knows?
Right. And,
obviously not you, because you didn't catch it.
Right, exactly. So, when I was doing my yeast transformations, I could not figure out why it wasn't working until I asked a bunch of experts, and they're like, oh, you need to change this, this, and this. And it instantly fixed it. So it really can just come down to, you need to know when to ask for help, and when you need a second set of eyes. Because if you talk to somebody who's done the thing, or you can find somebody who's done the thing, you can be like, am I doing something wrong, or did you have to radically alter the protocol to make it work? So that's a lot of it. But sometimes shit just doesn't work for no obvious reason, and at some point, if you cannot make it work, you need to know when to pivot and use a different protocol. Or when to refactor things. It's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. Everything I do, I end up doing 12 versions of, because I know the first 11 don't work, and you just refactor.
Remember when you were trying to grow those E. coli?
Which E. coli?
And you were trying to do that transformation, and it just wouldn't work.
Oh yeah, that was frustrating.
Yeah, and it's because you got a bad batch of antibiotics.
Yeah, because I bought from a bad supplier. And I mean, one of the other things, I found out that my pipettes are bad. I'm using cheap shit pipettes, and they're not consistent. And that's been screwing up some of my data. So now I'm
gotta get the fancy stuff.
That's the thing. I tried to be, and that's the other thing. Don't be cheap. There's a saying
that autoclave.
That autoclave was worth it.
No. Yeah, that autoclave was totally worth it.
Um,
I'll
so
tell the story about an autoclave, but need to go get a power cable. I'll be right back.
okay. So for example, oh man, there's so many things. Well, so I with the pipettes, for example, like I'm about to have to spend maybe $2,000 on pipettes, which is one of the reasons that we've got a donate bar for those who feels like donating. Um, I've got to spend like $2,000 on pipettes because I need good pipettes, because the ones I got are like $25 a piece from like the Odin, and they're garbage because everything from the Odin is garbage. Um, and it's not consistent. Like I'll go to measure out 10 microliters, and I'll do that 10 times, but then at the end I've got more than 100 microliters, and it's like, well, that isn't good. And it's because every time you use it, maybe 7 of the times it actually gave you the right volume, but if 3 of the times it doesn't, all of your measurements are fucked. So now I have to spend a lot of money and buy very nice pipettes, because otherwise I can't trust any of my results. And so
and you're just wasting materials. You're just throwing stuff away.
So that's the thing. Spending a bunch of money on a good material at the start will pay itself off, because you're not going to burn through as much stuff if it's the source of your failure. So
the autoclave is the perfect example of this.
Yeah.
So there's, if you go online and you look at autoclaves, there are autoclaves for like $150, and you're like, okay. I mean, laboratory grade autoclaves are usually like $2,000 or $3,000.
Yep.
This thing, it says that it's
so this is the one that I have. I pulled it up.
Other people, yeah.
This is the one that I have. It's like it looks like a big pot. I hate this thing. I hate this thing so much.
Yeah.
It's awful.
So I've blown through 4 of those things.
I've almost gone through
because the wiring is really shitty.
And also, like, the heater gets degraded, and like it gets beat up. Like, you're heating it up to 160 degrees over and over and over again under pressure. And like, if you're not super great about changing out the water, like, it gets all gross, and then it it eventually becomes a hazard, and you gotta get rid of it. So like, when I switched, so Gabe switched from these cheap ones, which is the ones that we'd been using for years, to this one, which is way more expensive, but I mean, it's paid off in spades because it's so much better.
But I only had to buy it once.
Exactly. Like, that's the other thing.
Yeah, and so there's that phrase, like a wealthy man only buys one pair of shoes. So I don't know about you guys. I am not wealthy.
A poor man can only afford the best boots because he can only afford to buy them once.
Oh, that's what it is. There you go.
Yeah.
But like, I bought the cheap autoclave. I bought 5 of them over time.
Yeah.
I spent more money on the cheap autoclave and replacing it and then shipping and blah 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 than just buying the good one. So
and the good one runs faster. It's easier to load. It's easier to work with. Like, it's a better product. I mean, you're paying more for it, of course it is, but still, it's worth the investment. And like, you find out very quickly when you buy cheap garbage that eventually you're going to end up having to buy the good stuff anyway. So like, I tried to make a spectrometer. Like, I wanted to make a nanodrop, but at the end of the day, I couldn't make it work because I just didn't have a sensitive enough sensor and a few other things. And
sensor.
Yeah, right. Like my sensor. Anyway. But yeah, it's buy nice or buy twice. That's basically what it is. So like, I tried to be cheap, and I spent all this time trying to make this stupid fake nanodrop thing, except I was using plans that I'd found on the internet, and clearly by people who were more interested in aesthetics than actual function. So it didn't work. Or I mean, it kind of worked, but it didn't really work. But eventually I just bought a nanodrop. Like, after spending all this time and trying to futz with it and, buy filters and all this stuff, none of it was working. And eventually I just bought the thing. And yeah, it was a lot more money, but it works. And I don't need to, like, think about it anymore because I'm like, oh yeah, I just use the thing. So
yeah,
there's a lot of that. Don't be cheap. It'll just bite you later. Like, here, look. If I look up, Micropipette. Micropipette. That's probably one word. I don't know why I put it. Yeah, here we go. So these are the ones that I have, and they suck. Don't buy these. These are also the ones that the Odin sells. Don't buy these. They're crap. Not that I will ever pass on a chance to shit on the Odin, but these pipettes are garbage. Do not use them. They're the ones I got. They're cheap, but they are unreliable. They do not give the proper amount of liquid every single time. And when you're doing bio, that's killer. Because sometimes if you measure out the wrong amount of stuff, you kill the thing you're working on, and that could be thousands of dollars worth of cells. So like when we mentioned ATCC, one of the biggest problems with buying from ATCC, and I'll just show you. If I click cell lines, you're going to see very quickly why you don't want to buy from ATCC if you can avoid it. Because, oh my god. Here, let's go with something fun. Let's go animal cells. Animal cells are usually some of the cheapest stuff that they sell, which you're going to see why that's an ass-clenching amount of money in about a second and a half. Dog cell lines, bovine cell lines, fish cell lines, hamsters. Like, they've got good selection. Let's just go mouse, just because everybody likes the mice. Right, and so you start going through this. You're like, oh, okay, this can be good. Okay, I don't know why they're all asking. Please contact your distributor. But if you click on one of these, theoretically it'll give me a price. It might not, but the point I'm trying to make is it's going to be very frickin' expensive. Does it give a price? It does not.
And the reason for this is that they technically, if you handle everything properly, you only have to buy it once.
In theory, but I mean,
because
how many times have we had cell lines get just destroyed? Like, maybe they don't thaw when we freeze them.
Well, that's because I don't have a liquid nitrogen generator, mostly.
Right. But I mean, accidents happen, right? Somebody's an idiot and knocks over your cell lines before you've had a second to expand them, and now they're ruined. And like, these cell lines can cost their lowest price is usually $375 for a tube of cells this big. Like, but we bought at one point when we were working on some stuff, we had to buy a cell line that was what, $3,000, $4,000, something like that.
Yeah,
it was really expensive. It was a tube this big. It was the same amount of cells, but it's $4,000. And like, if that is fucked, you get to spend another $4,000. Like, there's no warranty. You're an idiot. Pay more. So like, if you're buying crappy pipettes and you mismeasure something, and it kills
your $4,000 cell line,
you're in the shit. Whereas if you spend proper money and get a decent set of pipettes from don't buy from eBay if you're buying pipettes. Go to pipette.com, because it's their whole thing. It's all they do. Like, they just sell pipettes.
Yeah.
Right? It's literally pipette.com. It is the place to go for pipettes. It is expensive, but it's worth every penny. And like, knowing these things, man, there's so many comments saying that you got thinner. If you stopped eating, what happened? Have you just
I've just been watching my diet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, I quit drinking.
Oh, that'll do.
Yeah, cutting back on like 3,000 calories a day really helps.
Yeah. I don't get any of these comments. Just because I got fat. Anyway, but yeah.
Well,
so
at least nobody's calling you fat.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you, subscribers, for not being dickheads.
Cool. So
finding reputable suppliers is, I think, the other takeaway. Like, knowing when it's okay to buy on eBay and when you really should just buy from the right people. So like, when I run out of tips, for example, like pipette tips, like once I go through my supply, I'm not buying the universal ones anymore because they're crap. And like, there'll be times where like the liquid shoots out the side and you're like, well, that's no good. Or like, the liquid won't come back out of the thing and you're like, if that was my only sample of that liquid and it got stuck in the tip, that's no good. That's money. That's no good, because it could take time to replace it, and money, and then you're fucked. So, finding reputable suppliers for things that you value, and learning what things are worth buying used and fixing, and then, all while trying to maintain your protocol as best you can. Somebody says, I like the Eppendorf pipettes. Yeah, that's what I'm going to be getting. I'm getting the Research Plus ones, I think. Let me see if I can find them. promotions. Yeah, so this, I don't know if this is the set I'm going to buy, but, like, this is the Israel Ramos just donated. Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it. So, like, this is why we have a fundraiser, because these are really freaking expensive. This is the set that I've been looking at, and Gabe, you'll love this. So it comes with, so you can see a lovely price of 2,000 American schmeckles.
I'm lagging like everybody else though, so I'm just gonna have to wait. I can't see the pretty things you're looking at.
It'll come up in a second, but I was just gonna read it off. So this bundle comes with a P 0.1 to 2.5, 0.5 to 10, 10 to 100, and then 100 to 1,000. It also comes with an auto pipetter, a pipette repeater. So, like, you know when it's the one that's got, like, like that, but brand new from Eppendorf.
Right.
So it also comes with this repeater, so it basically has a huge fluid volume, and you just press the button.
Oh, and then you can just go boom,
boom, boom, boom, boom, boom, yeah,
boom, boom.
Exactly.
Nice.
Right? It comes with that and a carousel for all the pipettes. So I'm like, that's a lot of money, but goddamn, would that be worth it? Like, calibrated, accurate pipettes for like that, and all.
They feel good too.
They do. This is the other thing. When you've got to do this motion 18 bajillion times in a day, like
pipetter thumb.
Yeah, seriously. Like so for a Christmas video I made last year, I had to pipette out like 2 milliliters into something like 150 little tiny vials, and it was so tedious because first I had to fill all of them and my arm was on fire, like my hand hurt by the end of it, and then I had to go back in and inoculate all of them. Like, it was just not good. It was not something I would suggest at all. And yeah, so people are like, oh my god, $2,000, it's worth it. When this is your, like, you gotta understand that, like, if your job is driving, you need a car that's not going to break, right? Like, if your job is moving small volumes of liquid around, you really need the tool that moves the small volumes of liquid around to be consistent, because otherwise all of your work is worthless, and you're going to end up spending more money on replacing all of the stuff that you fucked up than you're going to spend on the one-time purchase, because these things will last forever, and I think they're insured. Manufacturer warranty. So if anything goes wrong with these, you can get them fixed. And, like, getting them calibrated professionally is like $15. Like, you get them professionally calibrated, and then you're just good. It's the same with, like, working with nuclear materials, right? Like, I know people who like collecting nuclear stuff or making fusion reactors or any of these really dangerous things. They pay a lot of money to have a really good Geiger counter and radiation sensors, because if they don't, they fucking die. So, like, you need to know when the things that are critical to your research are worth the extra money. And sometimes it's fine to be cheap. Other times it is absolutely not.
All right. So we have hammered that into the ground.
Yeah.
What else do we got? Do we have any more questions? Are there concepts that are hazy for people, or have we basically just are we done here?
I don't know. It's going to take a second for people in the comments to respond. But yeah, if you've got anything else you want us to touch on. Oh, we didn't talk about LibGen. So on top of...
Oh, yeah. And then the last thing is LibGen.
Yeah. So in the same way that Scihub gives you access to science papers, LibGen gets you books. And also science papers. So it's basically just this massive repository of information. And I'd highly recommend checking it out. It's got
those of you still in school, look at it for textbooks.
Yes, I found there was a.
Don't look at it.
Don't look at it for textbooks. You should definitely spend $900.
Definitely not.
Yeah, you should definitely spend $900 on a book you're going to use once and probably, like, rest your beer on, like. So but LibGen, it's a fantastic resource. Scihub, also fantastic resource. I'm actually
does anybody have any questions?
I'm kind of waiting for them to come in, but while we're waiting, so I think I'm gonna when I write the spider silk paper, I'm gonna have a thank you for Alexandra. I think Like, thank you,
Yeah, you
Alexander
should.
and Scihub.
Should.
Because I mean, there's nothing the paper can do to tell you not to have that. Um, and yeah, so I want to do that
I
because
think
it's like,
didn't Sebastian like actually put Scihub in the references section
I don't know,
of one of
maybe
his papers?
I'd, I'd,
Yeah,
I'd have
I think
to
he
I'd have
did.
to ask him. Um,
Yes, LibGen and Scihub are
Friends,
friends.
yeah. So LibGen backs up every time Scihub pulls a paper, because Scihub accesses the papers in real time, so it uses people's credentials to get the papers. That's how it does it. But every time that happens, LibGen downloads a copy of every paper that gets pulled and then adds it to their repository, so that it's backed up. But yeah, okay. So is there anything else? Otherwise, we're gonna wrap it up for the day.
Yeah. Come on, people.
But
I know
yeah,
you have questions.
ask thine questions. Also, if you have suggestions for other things you'd like us to talk about, you can leave them in the chat. You can send them to us on Twitter. You can do all these different things. But also, so
Yep.
while we're waiting, I'll take this moment to plug the discords, because that got talked about. And yeah, so there's two discords. There's my patron and member only discord, which is for people who donate, and then there's Gabe's discord, which is the Scihub discord, which is public and anybody can join and go have Gabe tell you that you're stupid.
That's not true.
It's not true. They do a lot of really great
I
stuff
only
on
do
that
that like once a month, and it's for very good reasons.
and it's usually to me. But yeah, no, the Gabe's Discord is getting progressively larger. There's lots of really cool people there. I'd highly recommend checking it out. Did somebody just?
There's a question here. How far ahead are you? How far ahead do you usually plan? How accurate are your budgets versus the actual spending? So budgeting comes with experience, but something that I was taught a long time ago is that you should just add 10 to 15%. Like once you've bought all your materials, or you have the list of materials, you know how much everything costs, right? So that's a pretty straightforward. And especially a lot of this stuff that's not disposable, like an auto pipette or, a power strip, whatever.
Yeah.
You buy it once and then you don't have to budget for it again. Once you have a better understanding of how many times you're going to blow through pipette tips, then you can start to get a pretty good number on that. But also, buying an individual box of pipette tips is stupid. So I try to save up and then buy like one gigantic box and then just be like, I don't have to think about it anymore.
Yeah.
Because it makes so much more sense. Don't buy yourself just one box of gloves. Buy a case of gloves.
Yeah, because you will go through
you
them.
will always need gloves. You're never going to be like, oh, I don't need gloves anymore.
Right. I mean, before the pandemic hit,
but
I knew, like me and a friend both stocked up on gloves because we smelled that it was coming, kind of thing, and so we bought a ton of gloves because we can't do our work if we do not have gloves. And so, sure enough, right on, like shortly after we stocked up, they all went, like you could not buy gloves. They were all sold out.
Right.
So like,
and
gotta
if
make
you
sure
can
you have
buy
stuff.
buy stuff in your country, usually that's a pretty fine thing. Like you don't need to. The follow-up question here is, do you need to shell out for the U.S. companies? Places like Thermo and ATCC, they're multinational.
Yeah, they ship local.
They're not. That's not like you don't consider that a United States company.
Yeah.
They go everywhere.
However, I will say a lot of the equipment I get on eBay usually comes from the States. It's very rare that I get something from Canada.
Right, and that just has to do about our rules about what you can and can't sell.
Yes.
So, like, there's a bazillion different eBays in Europe. There's like eBay.de and .en and all this other stuff. But if the European Union laws for what can and can't be sold say you can't sell these things, it doesn't matter if you have 20 eBays if they all have the same legal restrictions.
Yes.
So that's where you end up starting to look at where you're going to get your materials.
Yeah. So we had another question. Any suggestions on people wanting to write their own papers? Or is it not even worth trying to do? And are there better ways to get the info out there? No, papers are still pretty good. Like, I have problems with papers.
Yeah,
And
papers are great. You just got to get good at it.
That's the thing. If you're doing really hardcore science and you're able to present it properly and you know how to write papers are still great. Like, I do the video thing because that's what I know, and also because I'm trying to hit a different audience, but I'm still going to write a paper, right? Like when the spider silk thing is done or more done, that's going in a paper. And like, I know which journal I'm trying to get into, and it's going to be hard and it's going to be expensive, and I'm probably going to do a fundraiser for it because holy crap. But like, papers still have a place, right? Like, but it depends what you're trying to do. If you're just trying to show how to build a thing really quickly, like, put it on Instructables. But if you want to do actual sciencey things, papers are still a good method for that. It's just, you got to find the right journal that's going to let you format it in a way that's not stupid, and is gonna be willing to take your thing. You also have to be aware of predatory journals, and like, that's a whole other discussion that I don't want to really get into right now because it's really complicated, and it's something I'm not super familiar with because I haven't had to do it yet. But yeah, so that's that. What else? There was another thing I thought I saw, but I don't see it anymore. Which do you think is the safer way to handle it? What? I feel like
the safest way to handle
an audit. It was like an article, but it says, I know this is not related, but I'm planning to go into biomedical engineering. What are your thoughts about it? Have fun?
Cool. Yeah.
Shrug? I don't know.
Good luck, have fun.
Yeah, good luck, have fun. Tip your waiter. I don't know. Do we still have waiters? It's kind of pandemic country. Is that still a thing? Yeah, no, I mean, sounds good. Biomed engineering can be interesting. Does video blogging hold you back? I mean, it's certainly something that takes an enormous amount of effort. Like, there's certain projects I'll just work on and then come back and film them after, because I can't do both at the same time. Like, if it's really mission critical, I'll just do it, and then I'll come back and kind of redo it on camera once I know it works. What else we got?
It looks like that's about it.
Yeah, no, I think that's basically it. I think we've covered everything. We've talked about the Discord. If you want to do that, there's links in the description. Thank you, everybody, for donating. I also just saw Nico kicked in a little bit. Thank you very much. Again, thank you very much. To everyone who donated, thank you. It's really greatly appreciated. I don't know when the next stream is going to be, but we'll figure something out. Although I do have a very cool friend of mine who I'm going to be having on as a guest in the next little while. I'm still sorting out when that's going to be, but I think that's going to be a really, really fun stream. So be sure to follow me on Twitter and Facebook and all those things so you see when that's coming up. It's Michael for Gabe.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that'll be fun. So yeah, I think that's basically it. I think we're going to end it there for today. Thank you, everybody, for coming and hanging out. This was a lot of fun. Thanks again to the people who donated. And for those wondering, there will be a video this month. I have not decided which one it's going to be yet. It's probably going to be holograms, but still working on it. So yeah, you know the things. Go check out the other social media platforms and all that kind of stuff. But for there, that's where we're gonna end it. So thank you very much. Here, I'm gonna go to the just camera bit. So yeah, thanks everybody for hanging out. This was a lot of fun, and we'll see you on the next time. So have a great day. Bye.
Yep. Bye.